Session is a special one. We will actually do a presentation by Raghava Bhai, who, based on the sessions we have had so far of Samadhanatmak Bhautikvad English translation. So basically, what all concepts we covered. So it will give us the feedback also how the things are going, and I think it will also help in um, getting a bird's eye view of whatever we have covered so far. And yeah, so I mean, along with these sessions, I have been meeting Raghav uh, on the weekends, on the Saturdays. So I mean, quite happy with his progress and his jigyasa and uh, and the grasping of the concepts. So over to you, Raghav.
Yeah, thanks, Rakesh. So let us start. So, okay, so now in the next few minutes, I wanted to cover the ontology of existence, basically as per Madhyas Darshan and coexistentialism. All this information is basically based on translations from Rakesh. And the three books that I have been referring are Manav Vyavahar Darshan, the basic Jivan Vidya, the book, the alternative, that one, and the Samadhana Bhautikvada, the SB, MVD, SB, and JV. These are the primary books I've been referring to. And as I understand, Madhyas Darshan, Madhyast means mediative. And main idea of Darshan, as I understood, is that holds reality, basically, whole reality is regulated and conserved to an inherent mediative orderliness, right? Basically, it is an inherent mechanism of regulation, and there is no external governor as such. So I will go through these concepts of how this whole ontology is set up in the next few slides. Yeah, and let us start. Right.
Great.
So, okay, what does ontology mean and what are the basic questions I wanted to answer? Um, these are the few questions. What is existence? Is the reality one, many? What is fundamental? What exists? Does the whatever exists, does it have a beginning? What is self? What is me? Is it just the body? Uh, is the world real or imaginary? What is some mathematics that is there? And then how do we know this whole thing? So these are some few existential questions. I mean, what we call as ontology questions. And the main point is there are no separate answers for each of these questions. It is one single existence is coexistence line that is told in Madhyast. And this whole structure is not set of individual non-correlated vague answers. It is one structure. Existence is coexistence, and we want to derive and everything from this line, right? So let us see at the end of this session. I hope to give a clear answer to all of them, of these questions. Yeah, shall I go forward?
I think this is a excellent point. So anybody wants to make any observation on that? Basically, in Samadhanatmak Bhautikvad, chapter 4, specifically what we have been reading, has at a very high level described the ontology or what all exists. So this is what the meaning of ontology word. Uh, so over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so it is. I think we have been discussing all this, but I just wanted to put everything in one slide. Uh, so existence is basically two inseparable aspects: omnipresence or satta or vyapak. It is formless, all pervasive, non transforming, and immeasurable. And it is actionless. Basic idea is it performs no actions, and its main role is every unit is energized, regulated, and conserved in it. There is no place where it is absent, and that's the main idea of omnipresence. And if you see in this picture, this blue thing, you can assume it as omnipresence that is there everywhere, right? And each of these units, these circles are units that are there. These units, if you see, are saturated in this presence. See, the picture can only tell some aspects of it, but the idea is this. So each unit has length, breadth, width, and bounded from all sides and saturated by omnipresence. Um, right? If you see, there are two kinds of units, insentient, and the yellow ones are G1. And the basic idea is they are two separable, inseparable. I mean, the satta and these ikais are inseparable. They are never alone. And there is no place where satta is not there. Right? So that is what I wanted to capture in this picture. And I think even though it looks very straight, simple, this forms a basic bond if you see, right? In existence is never alone. Units are never alone. Satta is never alone. There is satta and units together, and there is a bond. This bond is what we call saturation. I'll go to the next slide. And another property of this satta is it is complete, right? There are no states that are there. It is states are all complete, so it can never change, and all change is there in the units. So, and units are basically dynamic, and all activity happens in the unit, either G1 or material. So these are the points that I wanted to capture here. Yeah.
Excellent.
I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so now I think the saturation concept is one thing that we need to understand. I think it is, as I understood, this is the ground for it. See, we call it a ground, but what is the use of the ground, right? Right. So the way that I understood is these units have this bond called saturation with the ground. And because of this saturation, each unit is inherently regulated. It is active and it has this capability of recognition, right? It can recognize the complementarity that is there with all the other units, and this complementarity is set up due to the saturation, right? I mean, so these are some few ontological facts, right? Right. So the regulation is there, it is active, right? The activeness comes, there is this basic impulsion, right, which reflects as Shram, Gati, and Parinam. And this whole system is set up in such a way to be active and regulated and recognize each other's complementarity. Right? This seems to be the basic thing that is different from all other things that I have seen. Right? Any other questions here? Did I come back? I mean, if I didn't come back correctly, please let me know. It's a thing for me to learn also. Yeah. Um, uh, so
Yeah.
the one point, so few questions I wanted to just go through. For example, does satta cause the units to act? No. The satta is, even though it is called it is a mahakaran, but it's not an efficient cause, right? Regulation is inherent to the units, and the unit basically manifests this regulation and complementarity. So also the units capability, basically the idea is units will recognize this capability, and they recognize it based on their capacity, ability, and receptivity. And that is its whole idea. So basically the way in which it can act will depend upon how it recognizes based on its capacity, ability, and receptivity, and it is regulated by this inherent regulation that is there. So this is how the whole setup is formed. Yes, Rak. I mean, I'll go to the next slide if there's no other questions here.
Think this is the fundamental ground of being, which needs to be understood thoroughly, because on this everything else is built, right? So if anybody wants to make any observations or comment on what does this sampriktata mean? So first thing that we said, that there are only two realities, no third reality. So that is one thing that is being said. because this ontological fact is the starting point of the whole thing. And uh, then we are basically describing the basic properties of these two fundamental realities, that is Vyapak Satta and units, that is nature. So that is the first level of acceptance. Then it is said that nature is saturated in omnipotence, or that सत्ता में प्रकृति संपृक्त है. So that is one thing that is being said, and as Raghava very neatly described here, that there is an inherent regulation in the units because of saturation. There is activeness and there is a recognition capability. The units are not islands because of their saturation. They have a they are mutually they have the image of one another, uh, and thereby they each unit is a whole and can actually recognize another. That is the way existence. It's the starting point itself is coexistence, which means that units and are essentially having the basis of recognition for other units. So that is why the coexistence actually manifests at all levels of being that follows, right?
Yes, the whole structure is built on these very few principles actually. Very interesting. So let us go forward. Okay, now we've told they are units. Okay, so what is a unit? A unit basically has inseparable aspects: roop, gun, swabhav, and dharm. I mean, they look simple, but okay. So let me just put it in the way that I understood. So roop is basically shape, volume, and density per that particular unit, right? It is basically, it gives the length, breadth, and that kind of a mechanism. The whole satta has no units, right? It is unitless. There is no dimension for it. It is infinite. But once properties units come, there is this thing called shape, volume, and density. A scale kind of a thing comes, right? And then properties. Okay, so basically the properties are how these are measurable things. We told measurability came with the form, but what are the specific measurement things that can happen? So that is gun. The idea of gun also is that what is the use of these properties, right? I mean, the properties needs to uh, be useful for others. That is swabhav. These properties are inherent, they are generative, degenerative, or mediative. Basically, how they help in this mutual, this whole mutuality or this complementarity that is there, how the unit behaves in this particular thing is defined by these properties. So they are either generative, degenerative, or mediative. So these properties are still for a particular thing, but they differentiate the two different kinds of units, right? Now the essential swabhav, which is a high, basically if they are all kinds of animals or any other unit. So so the usefulness is basically how the unit's properties uh, are useful, how these properties are useful in its particular order, right? So we require a class of objects that are there, and how these objects behave as a whole, and how is it useful to the whole system is what its essentiality is of the object. And dharma is basically the innateness, that the property that it cannot be separated from it. It is basically, you have to understand dharma in terms of the overall structure, how the unit is basically through its swabhav and properties is enabling this whole orderliness, its place in this whole orderliness that is there. So dharma cannot be understood by each one property or one object, but if once we understand this whole hierarchy, we can see the place of how its innateness is expressed in this whole orderliness. So the basic idea is there are these properties that that are inherent to these units that are there, and once these units are in their natural state, they are aligned towards their inner, towards their innateness, that is towards their properties, and they are in the path of development. If they are in some excited state, right, if then they are basically in not in alignment with the whole, and they are in a decline. So each unit with its wholeness is orderliness basically, and this is how these proper true gun, essential nature, and dharma, um, I mean, contribute towards the overall orderliness.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what I wanted to say. Maybe any other things we can discuss, anyone, yeah, on this slide.
So,
Yeah, Bhaiya, I have a small question. Is it okay for me to ask, or Rakesh Bhai, you want to explain first and then I ask?
no, I think he's done a fantastic job. So, Renu Didi, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I tend to kind of get a little mixed up between gun and swabha. So I understood that gun would be related to a particular thing.
Hmm.
Let's say, for example, neem ka ped. So neem ke
Hmm.
kya uses honge? It goes in that direction. Whereas swabha would be something that is common to, let's say, plants. And
Yes,
within that, what is its place in this whole existence? Am I understanding it right, this distinction?
yes,
Yes.
Okay.
yes, that is correct. So basically, property is for an individual thing, right? I mean, how it separates from another, and what is its
Hmm.
yeah, what is its property, whether it is red, blue, green.
Hmm.
Nature is also for the collection of all the things that are there. All, for example, all humans want to be happy, right? All dogs will bite, something like that.
Yes.
So it is their swabhav of the entire. So we need to know the order, and then how the whole order is contributing from its properties to this overall orderliness,
Yes. Good. Thank you.
right?
Yes.
So
I
one way of looking at it is form is as you go up, the impact of this is higher in the orderliness. Form is very small, properties is a little bit bigger in scope, nature is a little bit more bigger in scope, and dharma is more bigger in scope in terms of this how it affects this whole entire orderliness. That's how one way of looking at it may not be exactly mapping to the definitions, but the scope of this thing increases of how they affect their role in this whole orderliness structure that is getting built.
Hmm. That's interesting. Thank you,
Yeah,
Bhaiya.
so basically, if you look at it, now we are taking a somewhat of a one level down into how the nature is, right? So we are saying we talked about in the previous slide about the ground of being, that satta mein samprit prakriti. Now, in this satta mein samprit prakriti is going to go for successive emergence because it has a directionality for development. So dharma is actually is its association of its ground of being. That is how it is rooted. So dharma is its innateness or the rootedness. To to manifest dharma is the swabhav or the essential nature, right? So if you see that essential nature, the dharma of uh, material order is to exist, and to manifest that, the essential nature of that is to integrate or disintegrate, judna or bikharna. That is the way that basically it is manifesting its existence, because it is active and it has to maintain its existence. So its essential nature becomes that either it will combine or it will disintegrate. So that becomes its essential nature, and particular properties because of various kinds would be there. There would be many properties of that, and it will be available in many forms. So if you and you see that then after that comes it emerges to the next state where the cells actually form, and then the innateness becomes growth, right? So the growth is an innateness of biological order, and to manifest that is that vitalizing, devitalizing is the essential nature of that, which again manifests in the there are particulars when it comes to form and properties. In the same way, we can actually go about the animal order and the knowledge order. So these four quadrants together orthogonally and completely describe the unit. So that is the basically idea here, that a unit gets completely described by these four aspects, right? So that is uh,
Yeah,
about this.
yeah, that's about this. I'll go to the next slide. Maybe we'll see how it fits into the whole thing. Okay, so as we said, okay, now units are defined in the previous slides by their these four inseparable aspects, and now we know that units are active, and we know that they can recognize each other, and then they can recognize the complementarity that is there, and because of this complementarity that is there and their recognition capability, they understand this relationship that they have with others, right? And uh, and uh, and they try to fulfill these relationships because they are active. So there are two kinds of things: sambandh and sampark. Okay, so basically, sampark is like the expectations are just voluntary. Some example like there's no predetermined expectation or anything like that. It is just I just met somebody on the road or something like that. They just happen. But relationship is where there is a mutuality in expectations and like a parent and a child, right? I mean, basically, the expectations are predetermined, and there is a specific way in which these objects need to fulfill to have to make it complete, right? Um, so basic idea to top, I mean, initial level is okay. Now, once I recognize the relationships, the objects needs to fulfill, right? These relationships, the way that they do at a G1 level and way that they do at an individual insentient things may be different, but the basic idea is um objects, because of these relationships and then their ability to recognize, uh, they try to fulfill it, yeah, right? Uh, so that is one point I wanted to say, and 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 how do we do it? So basically, okay, essentiality is value, right? So basic, yeah, okay. So yeah, so now what we need to do is to understand basically in order to fulfill, we need to first start with knowing, and then we need to recognize the value basically, and then we need to fulfill the value. So so basically, this whole recognition mechanism is there, and this and there is a and the units acts towards fulfilling them. Right. So these are the few things that I wanted to say in this slide. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you say that we talked about the saturation. We talked about the four dimensions. Now we are saying that how the units are actually related. We're saying that saturation establishes the uh,
Relationships.
relationships. So relationship is something which is fundamental to existence, right? संबंध जो है वो अस्तित्व सहज है, right? And then this recognition and responding is something uh, which is not without actually any reflection happening in the nature other than humans. So recognition and response, recognition and fulfilling is actually happening without actually having any reflection on how it is happening, what is my role, what is it is happening in a way, in an automated way, right? Because there is no capacity for reflection. While with the coming of human being, the process of reflection actually happens, which is the way one actually starts to the process of thinking, right? And believing, right? And then after that, knowing. So knowing and believing is something which basically characterizes the human being. So knowing, believing, recognizing, fulfilling is the four aspects, जानना मानना पहचानना निर्वाह करना, is the way the relationship actually gets fulfilled in a human being. And human being, because they are the highest developed state in this ontological order of existence, all other entities that are there in existence are actually before that are having the partiality of that. I mean the partial aspect of that. So in animals, we see the some developed animals actually demonstrate the initial aspects of believing, like a dog actually accepts his master, right, and obeys the orders of the of his master, right. So that is the way that believing actually operates, but they don't have the uh, a capability of reflecting to understand what is the order, what is the system, where it is headed, and they don't actually have the capacity or the need for doing it, right? While in the human being, we see that there is a need for actually doing that. So if you look at it, uh, so in human being, actually one gets the capacity to actually डिस्टिंग्विश बिटवीन रिलेशनशिप एंड कांटेक्ट, संबंध और संपर्क के अंदर भेद करना जो है वो मानव में संभव होता है, राइट. सो दैट इज समथिंग दैट हैपेंस व्हाइल इन द entities which are prior to human being. They don't have the idea of relationship in terms of uh, basically to reflect on that, what is the purpose of the relationship and what is my role, etc. They would actually uh, uh, respond to the relationships according to their uh, uh, inherent design, right. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One additional point I wanted to add is that okay, are these values? Somebody might ask, are these values subjective, right? Right. So one clear thing is no, right? I mean, as per Madhyast, right? So basically, the basic idea is values are existential things. They are because of the way the relationship has been set up, there is a definiteness to what we mean by mulya, right? So basically, so that I think is set up as a because of the way the whole complementarity is set up. There, the mulya that we are talking about, the value that we are expecting are fixed and very definite. That is another point, and right, it doesn't depend upon if you are from a different culture should this value do we treat the values as different, right? So that's not the point here at all. I just wanted to add that point.
Right. So the values are existential and therefore they are universal. Yeah.
Yes, correct. So these are existential things that are there. Yeah. Yep. So this is just so now the basic thing is, so there are these four orders of nature that are there, that are getting built up because of their way in which they compose themselves and then go ahead. And this is the order in which the various orders of material that of units that are there. As you see, for the material path, for the padarth, existence is their main dharma. For the bio, their growth, for the pranic and the biological aspects which are insentient, they are still insentient in the sense that they are jada, but they show this property of growth. And if you come to animals and knowledge, Jivan is there in them. And for animals, what gets additional dharma that gets added is this hope to live. Jine ki asha starts from there. And knowledge, basically in the knowledge order, um, happiness is gets added. And because of this, there is an awakening that is possible. So if you see, so there are two clear paths. There's this sentience boundary is there. Material and bio are non-sentient, and animals and knowledge are sentient. And this table shows, for example, how the swabhav changes. Animals, basically humans, which is at the highest order, fortitude, courage, generosity, kindness, grace, and compassion are their swabhav. And they want to be happy. And because of this, and then they are, because of the sentient nature, there is a possibility that in humans, we can understand awakening. I mean, we can understand coexistence and awakening is possible. Um, these are some of the few points. Um, one may think, is this order similar to biological evolution or something like that? Material, life, animal, human? Not exactly, right? I mean, in the normal order of science, this concept of jivan is not there. Human is still just an animal. So, in this order, what we are trying to say is that um, um, there is this scrum that happens from units. Units become bigger, insentient units. There is this development, which I will touch upon the next few slides. Right? There is this progression that is happening, and at some point, Jivan associates when it is possible to, and then animals are formed, and then further development in Jivan happens, and sentient knowledge, and then humans are formed. Knowledge order starts. So even though it is similar to the normal biological, I mean, our evolution that is there in science, it is not exactly that. Um, yes, I mean, this is what I wanted to convey here.
Great.
I go to the next slide. Yeah, so this captures the basic thing of the completeness drive, right? That is whole set up by the ontology itself, right, of coexistence. So if you see, there is this drive, regulation, and properties and complementarity that we are seeing. And so there is this a drive for completeness. So there is this drive for completeness that is there, that is exhibited in these atoms, in these Jivan atom and the atoms. Because of this drive, so there is this effort, motion, and result. Because of this drive, larger and larger structures are created. The insentient atoms, there are two kinds of drives that are there. One is towards constitutional completeness, right? That we call as Gattenpool, where insentient atoms become sentient atoms. Also, another drive is to form more complex and complex. For example, atoms become molecules, molecules become so on and so forth. There is this drive. Why are they driving? Because they want to become complete in a sense, right? So, and then this completeness drive is there. Why is this completeness there? Because of this original bond that we have talked, right? There is, because of saturation in the design is there, of overall design of this whole thing is set up. And once insentient atoms reach the state of completeness, Jivan is Jivan is also formed. They become Jivan. And now Jivan associates with, when it is conducive, they associate with, it associates with uh, these chemical biophysical things to form animals, and progression in Jivan proceeds, right? Because Jivan is of a knowledge order, which we will talk, Man, Buddhi, Chitta, Buddhi, right? Atma. So basically, there is this further development that is possible through this projection and reflection kind of a cycle towards reaching Anubhav. So the whole existence, if you see, can be seen as a way in which there is this inherent drive that is set up, that everything wants to be complete or be complete.
This is wonderful. So basically, this Shram Gati Parinam, or the effort motion result three together, they actually describe the activity of nature. And it has and this activity of nature actually has the drive for completeness. And this drive of completeness leads to the emergence of four orders. And there are, in this drive for completeness, there are three milestones, irreversible transitions, right? Sankraman, which basically are, as Raghava described, are three: constitutional completeness, activity completeness, and conduct completeness. The first is the constitutional completeness, where the result gets its permanence or the immortality. That is when the Jivan actually forms. And the second is restfulness of effort, Shram ka Vishram. That is when Jivan attains the harmony in itself. It becomes aligned according to the Atma, right? So that is the state of Anubhav. And the third milestone is when this understanding of Jivan, this harmony of Jivan, becomes transmitted into the human tradition from one to the other. That is the destination of whole existence. That now the existence has been is understood, and the knowledge order has taken its rightful place and established itself in the form of tradition, so that all the four orders can be in the state of perpetual balance. So that is the destination which the existence has the inherent drive towards completeness. So this is the overall basically ontology if you look at it. We started with saturation in coexistence, then we talked about the uh, mutual recognition and complementarity and relationship, right? And then we talked about that completeness drive. So this basically is the very simple operating system of the existence. It is not a very complicated thing, but it needs to be, once this is kind of set in us that this is the fundamental thing, everything else actually is building upon it.
Then yeah, so more details about this transition. Basically, yeah, I mean just whatever Rakesh told here. So so basically these specific transitions happen. So basically now at in the first transition, when the constitutional completeness happens, animals in the deluded state are there, and then once we have achieved this kriya purnata, we reach this deific plane, which basically there is an awakening in the humans. And then the divine plane is when the conduct completeness happens. I mean, same points over there, just a pictorial format. Okay, so some more points about this, right? So completeness in T1, if I just talk just to talk about a few more points over here. Constitutional completeness at an atomic level. Yeah. So some more points that are there. So basically, even though it looks so, when we achieve T1, until the atoms achieve T1, there is this combination of continuous change. For example, chemicals are formed, molecular size happens, physical layer happens, so on and so forth. And once we reach T1, once the molecules reach T1, um, um, they are okay. What it is said is they are liberated from molecular and weight bondage, and and because of this, there is no increase or a decrease in particles, and there is no quantitative or a qualitative change that is happening. And because of this, they are able to basically reflect whatever is present in satta in a very clear manner, right? So there is this change that happens. So we are trying to describe it not as an abstract thing, right? But it is a very physical thing that happens, right? If you see, uh, uh, before this T1 is reached, the molecules have weight, right? and there is this change in this constitution that continuously happens. Once the this constitutional completeness happens, the nature of this whole atom changes, right? And this is what is very, very critical about how this thing happens. Um, and very difficult to explain with current science, but yeah, the scope of this thing is there to prove, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So basically, as Raghav said, that Jivan is not a emotion or something which is as an electrical signal of something physical, but it is an entity which has actually transitioned irreversibly from the physical chemical uh, nature, right? So this is a fundamental change that basically Babaji is talking about, that actually takes place where the nature of atom actually changes. That one that which was earlier was able to exhibit physical and chemical properties by actually having the weight bondage, that is bhar bandhan, and molecular bondage, that is anu bandhan, right? That was basically was able to form the physical and the chemical bonds with others. Now this basically atom becomes free from this bondage, and instead it basically starts these kind of the energy that it has, the activities that it has, they get transformed in the form of basically the activities such as hope, thought, desire, uh, and so on, right?
Yes.
So that actually is a first irreversible transition.
Yes, and then one thing that you so because of this, because no change can happen, because it is constitutionally complete, it is immune to decomposition. That is another point, right?
Hmm.
And then therefore, Jivan is persistent, right? It doesn't disintegrate. So
Hmm.
even if the body dies, the Jivan continues. Because so that is another thing, because it can never disintegrate. That's what this T1 tells us. This threshold, once it achieves, that's what gives us the thing. Now we came to G1. So basically, this is the structure of G1, right? So as you see, G1, because it is of a similar structure of orbits like what we think of normal insentient atoms. It also has shells, right? So these shells are Manvrutti, Chitta Buddhi, and Atma, which is the nucleus, which is the central regulating portion. And as I so basically the idea is it is able to reflect satta as it is from top, right? That is the main point over here. Because of the way in which it is set up, it is able to reflect this whole design from satta and then capture the regulation, because it has a bond, right? Is given has a bond this through saturation with satta, and because of that it reflects, right? It is able to reflect satta. So basically if you see this particular chain of projection that happens, um, it reflects authenticity. Based on authenticity of the pramanic, whatever is pramanic, there is a sankalp comes in buddhi. Based on that buddhi, there is a visualization that chit creates. Based on the visualization, analysis happens. Based upon this analysis, selection happens, and then we act. So if you are completely clear, right? So that is the path that follows, right? If you are completely realized and everything is transparent, all Atma, Buddhi, Chitta, Vritti, Man are all aligned, which is what this whole sentience drive is. I mean, this completeness drive is within Jivan. So whatever is there in coexistence, we are able to project down and then do it, right? We create sankalp, we visualize what is required to do it, we analyze whatever is required, and we do those things that are required to complete. So once everything is aligned, we are in perfect harmony and with the design that is there in coexistence, and we are able to project it down. So, I think this is just to give a taste, right? There, it requires a lot more details to be explained, I guess. But the idea is to what I wanted to mention over here is there are these shells that are there, and the idea is in this development drive, one of this idea is to align all these things in a correct way, such that the whole design of this whole existence, which is there as an ontological fact in this whole setup, there is a way to express it. And then this whole thing is set up. I mean, that's all I want to say, Rakesh. I mean, anything you want to add, that will be great.
This is good. So Jivan actually has the ability to reflect onto itself, and then eventually reflect into the omnipresence. While omnipresence is the saturation is in omnipresence is there in the insentient nature also, but the capability of reflecting onto itself uh, and into the coexistence with the omnipresence is only there in Jivan. Also, Jivan is actually subtle, and body, which is made of physico-chemical thing, is gross. So therefore, the subtle has the capacity to control the gross, right? And brain is the medium for doing that. So the physical chemical nature has evolution. It basically develops the brain body system, and this brain body system is uh, capable of receiving signals of Jivan, and thereby Jivan and body composite actually comes into being, which first gets demonstrated in the animal living, where only जीने की आशा or the hope of living actually gets manifest, and in the human being the possibility of realization in coexistence opens up, right? So then with this the thing, the faculty of imagination actually gets developed in the emerges in humans, which is an extra property, and from there actually the search for meaning becomes natural, which leads to the understanding of existence and thereby realization. So realization in coexistence becomes the basis of authenticity in human being, and with that authenticity one basically is able to have the harmony in the jivan. Yeah.
I think, yeah, go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So basically, if you see, there is this awakening that is happening, and there is this concept of harmonizing of these various layers or shells that are there. So basically, it is a felt feeling because of this jivan that it's not some abstract thing. It is what we feel, right? So basically, once we are able to, man and vritti are aligned, we feel happiness. Once vritti and chitta align, we feel this peace, shanti. Once chitta and buddhi are aligned, we feel this contentment. So basically, these are, and then bliss is when buddhi and atma align. So the basic idea is this is nothing abstract. I mean, in the sense that these are specific things that happen once various shells align, right? I'm seeing it in a very physical, structural basis that is happening, right? If you see, this whole thing is very physical in nature from top to bottom. There are these atoms, shells are there, Shramgati Parinam is happening, and atoms are the shells and electrons and protons are getting aligned to form bigger structures. At some point they are aligning, and then jivan is created. Now there are shells similar to shells that are there, and then these shells are aligning, right? But it's not mechanical in the jivan sense as that it is, but there is this question of, yeah, it is not as mechanical as it is in the but still the whole structure is there. So then these shells align with each other, and then we need to work towards, through our understanding, to align this study and understanding. We need to align these shells, and then once we do that, once everything fits into place, we receive Anand. So this is the feeling that I'm getting of how this whole progression happens.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Good. Yes. So this is good. So basically, these are the fundamental values of Jivan, which it wants to achieve. So happiness, peace, contentment, and bliss, as Raghava described, is the result of harmonizing of Jivan's faculties. And these values in turn manifest as human values, and which in turn manifest in the form of relationships, and they get expressed, right? And the material world and the rest of the nature also basically finds its value. That also gets evaluated. So that is the whole value system that uh, that basically comes into play within the awakened living. So that's so Madhyas Darshan basically describes a value system based on existence, right?
yeah,
This is the value system that, and this value system then becomes the basis of defining or rather organizing the society, organizing the civilization, defining the constitution, and all the rest of it. So if we look at it, we started off with a very, very fundamental nature of existence, and we have come into a very big concepts of culture, civilization, constitution, and uh, and so on, right? But if so, that is the beauty of this whole thing. Yeah.
so okay, yeah, yes. Any question? Yeah, any points you wanted to add?
No, that's all from my side.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So okay, so this is some more information. I mean, okay. Yes, so what we see here is, yeah, I mean, the progressions, they are, I'm trying to define how the progression, how the nature moves here. We see that the nature is dynamic, right? So this is how the various, from Niyati Kram, basically it is how the emergence happens from a fixed, from the material to pranic to animal to knowledge order. This whole progression is what we see is called as Niyati Kram. So so now this Vikas Scrum is basically how the so the different names or terms that we have come across. I wanted to summarize here. Um, the atoms until they become complete. That's the Vikas Scrum within the atoms themselves. And in the Jagrati Kram, the Jivan now tries to achieve activity and conduct completeness. That is called Jagrati Kram. And 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 basically yeah, and then there are four planes. Basically this is how we have already talked, these three planes are there. These three where units stands basically, they occupy material or a bio or an animal or a knowledge order. um, yep, these are some few terms that I wanted to talk in terms of progressions and planes.
Krishna Bhaiya, you want to say something? I see a hand raise here.
जी नमस्ते भैया. Actually,
Namaste.
in the previous slide, we have used two words, reflection and projection,
जी.
प्रत्यावर्तन and परावर्तन. तो भैया
हाँ.
ऐसा तो समझ में आता है कि मन का परावर्तन वृत्ति में, वृत्ति का चित्त में, और फिर जब वो प्रत्यावर्तन हो रहा है तो उस प्रत्यावर्तन की स्थिति के अकॉर्डिंग फिर गति में परावर्तन हो रहा है, या फिर बुद्धि का जो चित्त में हो रहा है, चित्त का जो वृत्ति में हो रहा है, या वृत्ति का जो हो रहा है, उसको भी हम परावर्तन बोल रहे हैं. पर जो साइंस की टर्म्स है प्रोजेक्शन और रिफ्लेक्शन, वो थोड़ा सा कनेक्ट नहीं कर पा रहा था, इसलिए मैंने एड्रेस किया भैया.
Yeah, actually, it's words we have chosen to represent them, but basically, paravartan is to project outward. That is how the word was chosen, and reflection is to reflect inwards. Okay, so when we actually reflect inwards, so that piece is called pratyavartan. And when we actually project outwards towards the body, that is called paravartan. It's it is the words that we have chosen. Maybe there can be better words for that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So okay. I now wanted to talk about this regulation. So the next few slides. So want to talk about this regulation, law and justice. See, the starting point of this whole thing is because of the nature, because um, because of the saturation, there is regulation that is there in each of these units, and and the regulation shows at various levels, and that is the seed for law and how we need to set up. So orderliness itself is regulation, and it is inherent in the saturated units. And there is no cosmic governor kind of a thing that somebody says do this, right? It is internal and inherent to these units themselves, and it shows in this way basically, right? For example, in the material order, it is shown in their structural conformance, right? And and in biological or pranic order, there is this seed conformance that happens because based on their progeny, right? Based on the specific way, the whole thing is regulated. And in animal order, there is this species conformance. And in knowledge order, it is achieved through knowing, believing, and recognizing cycle. Um, so, so So the idea of justice over here is to basically not basically it is recognizing relationships. It is a close basically it is an evaluative process where the relationships are recognized and we see whether it is there is a mutual satisfaction across these values are exchanged. Yeah. So yeah, the point that we wanted to, at least I wanted to convey over here is this regulation is inherent, and 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 the whole structure is formed in such a way that um, this is set up in this way.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
inherent regulation actually manifests in the form of law. नियंत्रण जो है सत्ता में संपृक्त होने के कारण ये नियम के रूप में मैनिफेस्ट होता है. तो नियम जो है वो आचरण है. Right. So this basically is the basic principle that regulation is inherent because of saturation in Vyapak Satta, and that basically manifests in the form of law. And law is as definite conduct. And one way of seeing law in the context of humans is justice in their relationships, right?
Yeah. 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 Okay. So Jnan. Okay. So now this talks about. So we've talked about Jnan, right? So basically knowledge. So basically. I just go to this slide that seems to conform to whatever I wanted to say better. How we know things, basically, right? So these two slides, I wanted to talk about knowledge. See, really, the whole idea of knowledge is that omnipotence itself is knowledge, right? And it is Satta is the basis on which we can understand space knowledge. Basically, it is a ground for intelligibility, right? And once we, so not able to add properly over here, but so there are different ways in which this jnana unfolds, right? Let me talk from this jnana udghatan portion of it. So basically, through our conduct, the knowledge unfolds through the various layers, and Yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk, not able to talk clearly, Rakesh here.
Yeah, so basically, if you look at it, Vyapak Satta in itself is the absolute energy. It is known by three names, Urja, Chetna, or Gyan, right? So for the material nature or the physical chemical nature, it is because they are present in it, they are actually energized and exhibit activities. So the basis of activity is urja. That is how basically this relationship of satta and kriya is in the material world. Then comes the sentient activity. So because of being in it, uh, are they able to exhibit the evaluative capacity, which is evaluative capacity itself is the sentience, यानी कि मूल्यांकन क्षमता ही चेतना है. तो ये जो चेतना जो है इसको दिस इज बेसिकली starts happening with the coming of sentience. Now finally comes the human being where the, because of being in it, the humans are actually are able to realize in it. So realization or the it becomes the basis of authenticity. So authenticity is possible in human being. प्रामाणिकता जो है वो मानव में possible है by actually realization in this omnipotence. So for humans, the omnipotence itself is the gyan. Okay. For sentience, omnipotence is the consciousness. For material nature, omnipotence is the absolute energy. So the same ground of being actually means different thing based on their entity's state of entity's capacity. So इकाई की क्षमता के अनुसार जो है व्यापक सत्ता उसमें प्रकाशित है. Based on the capacity of the unit, the absolute omnipotence is manifest.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So I will. Okay. So So now, okay, so now this slide summarizes this whole drive that I wanted to, that we were discussing. So we started saying that, okay, these atoms are there. Now atoms are set up in such a way that there is this, we talked about this completeness drive. And what happens is this end result, right? So the end result is there is at a human scale, this whole thing is set up in such a way that uh, uh, there is, it manifests as a uh, from family towards an undivided society and universal orderliness, right? And how this whole structure manifests is everyone is resolved, everyone is prosperous, there is fearlessness, and there is coexistence. So these are the external properties of the end goal of this whole progression that we have been talking about. And and this is what is made possible by design. I mean, the main idea that wanted to talk about it is the ontology is set up in such a way that this is the possibility that will happen, right? And there is a progression from an atom towards universal ordinariness in Akhand Samaj. So that is the whole setup that is there. And few things are basically existence, coexistence is conserved. That is, world is perpetual, right? Basically, it is not illusion. It is there forever, and it is perpetual. That is one thing that we need to that is to keep in mind. The other thing is Jivan is basically persists. It doesn't decompose, and it persists across death. And it is Satai state complete. So based, so we, so this is what are the few takeaways of this whole ontology as how it is set up. And to answer the questions that we started with, right, I think it should be clear, I guess, by this point of time that what exists is coexistence, satta and units. And it does not begin, it is there forever. It is there, right? It never started. It is going to be there. The self is what is Jivan, it doesn't begin. It doesn't end, it is always there, right? And what can be known? This is the coexistence is what is to be known, and how we know it is basically once we align through practice. Through practice, we have to align man with chit buddhi, and we would need to study and practice. We get an understanding of coexistence. So these are the last few slides that that is the conclusion of the presentation today.
Excellent, Raghava. This is wonderful. So I'll open the floor for the discussion, maybe.
Yeah, I tried. So basically, I tried to summarize whatever I could, Rakesh and all. Yeah, so the slides presentation, I will forward to you the link in the chat here. A link in the chat. Maybe you can send me any comments or anything that will be helpful.
Yes, that would be very good. I think basically these are the some hard facts about the way the existence is. Like now, these hard facts need to be. This is what the darshan essentially is about. That this is what has been seen, right? So the whole premise of Madhyasth Darshan, says the Prabhat, is what has been seen in existence. These are the final statements of existence. Okay, so conclusive and final statements of existence, right? So this is the what the level of darshan is. Now, based on this darshan, certain reasoning is developed, right? So reasoning actually unfolds after the premises of darshan are established. So samadhanatmak bhautikvad is actually a system of thought, right? So it is a system of thought based on the premises of what has been seen at the level of ontology, right? So then basically we are seeing the vad, and then find which is basically the Vad actually is not ideology, it is a system of thought, right? It is a system of thought based on what has been seen in existence. Then comes the Shastra, that is how this understanding is to be lived. So, entire Madhyas Darshan presentation has been done at three levels. First, what is seen in existence. Second is the thought that unfolds from it. And the third is how the living actually comes about based on such a thought, right? So that is the three levels in which Babaji has structured his Vangmay, uh, right? So, uh, so we are doing chapter four of this thing. I think today we will not do the books. Maybe we will have some discussion today on the. Because I thought that this recap was kind of necessary, and Raghava had prepared a presentation, so I thought it would be a good thing. So for all of us to recap, so come to the same page. Yeah. Thanks, Raghava, for this. Anybody wants to make an
Namaste. Spencer here. I'm
Hey,
just hi. I'm just speaking quietly. My son is just sleeping in the room here, and it's the only room available for me right now. So, um,
and I was not able to join completely. I had some work obligations, but I joined late and I was listening all that I could. And Raghav, I just want to say I'm very impressed and inspired. One thing is to take the initiative to read and go through the literature, and then you've taken it to the next level, which is, for your own study and for all of us to prepare this beautiful presentation and really go through it. And I'm really, it's really great to see your
Yeah.
commitment to that. So yeah, congratulations. I think it's something that I would like to have more of. So thank you for doing that. It was really, really, really nicely done, and I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Spencer. So basically, I did this to put my thoughts together and then improve my understanding. Yeah, that's the perspective in which I did that, and yeah, and then Rakesh is there to correct. Right?
No, and it's great because you put the extra effort. Like it's first step is reading, then you got to think about it, and you went the next step, which is put the pen to the paper, or in this case the on the presentation. It was really good.
Yeah, I think basically we what this darshan is requires is not a devotional alliance, but actually a process of study where you actually develop your capacity for seeing, right? And the first capacity for seeing is at the level of rational thought, right? So first, basically, this darshan proposes is that we become clear in our thought what is this idea is essentially before seeing it in existence. So, so just like that, when a rocket is launched, before a rocket is launched for the moon, all its calculations are done on paper, and you basically are able to figure out every aspect of it in before even putting any rock ignition in the rocket. Just in the same way, this before we actually go ahead, this process of study actually first invites you to evaluate the things, to actually have this thing in your imagination. Babaji used to say your imagination is the catalytic agency for uh, realization in knowledge. So this is our inbuilt capacity for understanding. So our imagination, in a way, basically provides the fertile ground for understanding, because everything, any information that comes into it, it actually expands in it. It basically, the words are few, but they expand and they basically reach out for understanding the meaning, right? So this is what is the process of study, in which we listen to something and then we ratiocinate, or we actually mull over it, right? To rationalize, to see the reason of that. This reasoning is followed by uh, trying to actually bring it into practice, uh, into our living. And if we try to basically align our living according to the way things are said to be in existence, we get the capability of seeing those realities at the level of buddhi, which was earlier we were seeing at the level of thought. Now we start seeing them at the level of buddhi, which is a new faculty that is opening up in ourselves, which is beyond words, right? Which is direct seeing in the existence. And then that actually is a fundamental change that brings about, which are the conceptions और अवधारणाएं जो कि एक बार establish होने के बाद the conceptions that once which basically get established, there is no way that can be shaken after that, because they are, that is the way things are, so they get accepted forever, right? So they, once these conceptions get established the in totality, then the realization into coexistence becomes inevitable, right? It is a natural consequence of that. And once the realization in coexistence actually happens, that takes the driving seat in our living. So that, if you look at it, is the whole process, that there is a connectivity from the right, from the level of sensing uh, to uh, to actually deliberating over it, right? To have a comprehension of it, and then to actually have an awareness of it, and then after that to have a realization of it, right? So that is what the process of adhyan means, that we listen to something, we comprehend at the logical level, then we become aware of it uh, at the level of buddhi, and then we actually become realized in it, to be rooted in it, right? So that is the basic process of adhyan, if you were to look at it. Yeah. So Krishan Bhaiya, you were saying something?
So, yeah, how we can differentiate that we are seeing from the level of thought or we are seeing from the level of buddhi. Basically, whatever we are getting at the level of thought,
Yeah.
we are trying to practice it. And
Right.
by practicing anything, it becomes our acceptances, it becomes our assumptions, very, very solid or acceptances. So that is one way that we are again creating new acceptances. And
Yes.
we are also saying that we have to see the reality as it is.
Mhm.
So I want little bit light on this.
Ji bhaiya. So basically, it is the same thing that we are listening, which we are getting more firm into in the with the level with the rational thinking, and which we are getting committed to by believing or having acceptance, and which is further strengthened by actually having the awareness of, and which is permanently established by having a realization of. So it is the same thing, which there's no change in terms of the content, but our conviction in it, our stability in it is the only thing that actually is increasing. Now, how this thing will demonstrate in behavior practically, it will only demonstrate in the, like, in terms of the day-to-day living, probably in the visible sense, nothing really changes. Like, we will eat, we will walk, we will do things, etc. We will live in the family. But in terms of the depth of our understanding and appreciation of that, our utilization of our resources, our directionality, our stability of thought, that actually starts seeing some qualitative change. It should start seeing some qualitative change. That only then we will say that we are actually progressing. So initially, at the first level, it might be actually somebody who was indulging in a lot of crimes and or something fundamentally wrong. Those will diminish. Like, in the absence of crimes only can the reflection actually happen of man. And then when you actually start living in a विद जस्टिस, न्याय के साथ में हम जीना शुरू करते हैं, न्याय के वातावरण में जीना शुरू करते हैं, once we start living in that, that actually starts nurturing our thought, and then in the same way, basically in the same progression, when we start actually start doing this adhyan, which is understanding the fundamental reality of things, there actually another change actually happens. The deep rooted beliefs, incorrect beliefs, they actually start getting uh, replaced by the correct beliefs. And then after that comes we are seeing that the beginning of a next level of thinking, that next level of consciousness, that is about the permanent acceptance of reality, which we are calling it Sakshatkar Bodh. So that is the process. That is what I am saying. Now the question is that how am I sure that whether uh, whether I am at the level of buddhi or at the level of chit or at the level of vritti. This is something that only we can examine. Others can only see our conduct and thereby basically try to estimate or try to guess our conduct. Like if somebody is indulging into lying or theft or things like that, clearly that person has not even processed the thought of righteousness. You know, so that is one way of looking at it.
Yeah, actually, I was asking about self-evaluation. How can I evaluate myself? There are some characteristics or some yardsticks. Like because I'm putting this question because you have gone through this process for a long time and exploring a lot, and that is reflecting in your uh, dialogues, in your explanations. So actually, my question is because you have moved from these stages. So, what are the changes you have realized in yourself so that we can also, it can be a basis for our evaluation also?
So I think that process, as I was saying, that initially might be to indulge in the to stop the wrong activities is would be the first thing that one can see, that something blatantly wrong needs to be stopped. Right. That actually needs to will be the first step. The second step is that we actually are trying to see at a more subtle level in which we see whether our thoughts are aligned correctly or not in the behavior. We see whether our conduct is social and align our way of livelihood and relationships in line with this understanding. So this evaluation process is happens against the benchmark of completeness. So somewhere you hold that it is important to hold two things. One is that there is realization in existence is possible and the benchmark of completeness is there. Like I hold that benchmark as Babaji, right? So that basically becomes my evaluation yardstick. Evaluation always happens against a benchmark. You can't do a relative evaluation. You can't do a relative evaluation of yourself based on your relative conditioning, relative condition. So evaluation happens in the against a benchmark. So for a human, the benchmark would be another human, right? So you need to hold somebody as a evaluation benchmark to actually do an assessment of your own actions, thoughts, and beliefs. And that actually leads to a corrective mechanism. This is a gradual process and an iterative process. The process of rational thinking is probably easier. You can, and it is, darshan doesn't have many concepts as such. It's essentially a simple framework. The whole idea is can be grasped. I think as we become better in explaining these things, I think the basic idea of darshan can be communicated in a short amount of time. but it is a lifetime commitment to actually practice to live by it, because our beliefs are so deep rooted and we are entrenched in our conditions of in which we are living. There, a millimeter of change actually might require years, right? So that is what is the situation. And in this course, basically, our life also is progressing. Our children are becoming bigger. We ourselves are becoming older. The life situations are changing. Parents are becoming older. We have various different things that we need to do. With all this dynamic, we need to actually manage our uh, inherent desire to actually understand and be realized in coexistence. And probably Adhyan actually is tied up with that, right? It is not something which we can actually detach ourselves from the living. So that is how I am actually seeing this thing, that becoming so the processes that I see is, first is that gross level clearance, rational understanding. Then after that, a long path of practice and gradual refinements, right? With an possibility of having to change your uh, conceptions in a radical way by having some new inputs also, right? So that is a iterative process that I am actually seeing.
जी भैया, थैंक यू।
So it is about time, 9 o'clock. Renu Didi, any observations? I think Vanna Didi, anything you would like to add? Anyone else?
नहीं भैया, it was very good. Raghava Bhaiya's
Mhm.
whole presentation was also very good, very detailed, very nice. Yeah, I joined a little late, but yeah, I heard the whole thing. It was very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Didi.
भैया अभी हम बुक से पहले कुछ प्रेजेंटेशंस के थ्रू समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, ऐसा मेरे को लग रहा
नहीं,
है।
actually ऐसा हुआ कि we thought that we will recap the till whatever point that we have read so far. क्या concepts जो हैं अभी तक आ गए हैं, है ना? So Raghav bhai had prepared a presentation. Then I suggested, why don't you present it to the group? And that is where it was. So we will continue reading our book in our next meeting on next Sunday. Yeah. So we are still on
तो
the fourth chapter.
राघव भैया ने जो आज प्रेजेंटेशन दिया है, अभी तक जितना कवर हुआ है उसको कवर
हाँ.
करने का कोशिश किया।
Yeah, largely, yes. Yeah.
तो ये स्लाइड्स जो हैं वो आप ये ग्रुप में शेयर करेंगे?
Yeah, I'll forward that. मैं उनको भेज देता हूँ.
I have put a link in the message. I mean, if you want, I've put the link in the message already.
ओके, थैंक यू भैया।
The chat group, yeah.
I just want to share my acknowledgement after reading a lot of paragraph style content. I thought it was refreshing to see another format that is so concise, and coming from a typical corporate background, I think it really helps. So great effort and work, Bhaiya. Thank you very much for your contribution.
ठीक है जी. So thank you very much everyone for joining, and we will meet again on next Sunday and continue with our reading. Yeah.